perfect propaganda statement that he made when he took his plea deal, if you ask me.
And the propaganda, the sophisticated packaging, the PR rollout is always the signature of a false flag. For those that don't know, the New York Times and CBS News in 1993 reported that the FBI did cook the bomb, train the drivers, give them the detonators, and order the bombing of the World Trade Center using 2 low-grade moron, mentally ill people. And that could also be what this is. Mutala, of course, looks drugged most of the time. We'll discuss what this means straight ahead and the new patsies they're setting up. This is Alex Jones with 5 good reasons you should consider. I'm here live Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central. That's 12 noon to 3 p.m. Eastern. Back Sundays 4 to 6 Central. That'd be 2 to 4 Pacific, 3 to 5 Mountain. Coming up, Jim Mars is going to be with us here on location at the historic and beautiful Lakewood Theater in Dallas, Texas. And unfortunately, this place only holds 800 people. It happened again. Every event I've ever had, sold out. Sold out. I'm going to be giving a speech, Blueprint to Defeat the New World Order. And I am also going to be premiering a film. And Jim Mars is going to be speaking. And then I'm going to be in Orlando next week. And those tickets, that venue holds over 1,000. I've only got a couple hundred left. Find out more at INFOWARS.com/events. I also have coming up David Sardi, who was one of the big stars of the reality TV show Preppers, Doomsday Preppers. He went to the doctor and had medical problems. They said, your guns are now confiscated. They're taking veterans' guns. They're taking people's guns who have surgery. They're saying, well, you might get depressed, so we're going to go ahead and take your guns. So now when you get sick, they take your guns here in Land of the Slave, Home of the Coward, until we stand up and say no to it. Of course, there's no law saying that, but they still do it because it's a criminal, out-of-control government that wants victim disarmament. Now, we've only got about 10 minutes in this segment. I'm going to try to shut up and give him the floor. But when I think about the bizarreness of the story, Kurt Haskell, survivor of the underwear bombing with your wife, you witness it all, the weird guy videotaping it. They land the plane, take you off, say there's a bomb threat. They have their other agents on the plane. It's like out of a James Bond movie. And then you say you saw him get him on the aircraft. Oh, that's ridiculous. Then they admit the government helped get him on the aircraft, but let's not discuss that. And now tell folks what you talked about in your victim's statement and other points that you think are important here on the record. Kurt Haskell.
Sure. Well, if you're a victim of a crime, you get to make what's called a victim impact statement. You basically have to say how the crime affected you physically, emotionally, or financially. And you can basically talk about whatever you want in it as to the crime. So Judge Edmonds, however, usually they're unlimited, but Judge Edmonds limited us to 5 minutes per passenger only. So I had to really make it compact. So that's kind of what I did. And I wanted to write it out ahead of time because I thought if I was just going off the top of my head, I might say some things that would get me in trouble. My speech was pretty infuriating to the judge anyway, even my pre-prepared one. But I think if I went off top of my head, I might have started yelling at the prosecution or the judge or something. So I wanted to write it up. But basically, I just went through some of the things I mentioned here, and a few other points like I was at a hearing where the prosecution indicated it didn't want to give any of the evidence to standby attorney Chambers because then passengers could subpoena the evidence from him because he didn't have attorney-client privilege and use it to sue the government. And they said they were concerned about being sued. So, I brought up in my statement, why is the government concerned about being sued in this case? What are they hiding? So I brought that up. I brought up the fact that I went to the jury questioning hearings where they're questioning all the jurors, and that Judge Edmonds kept asking them, if you realize, do you realize that sometimes the media lies to you? And Chambers kept asking them, do you think after you look at the evidence, you'll be able to tell whether something is a bomb or not? Just things like that. One thing after another, after another, after another that shows that, yeah, this was indeed an intentional plot. Along with us sitting on the plane after it landed with pieces of a bomb everywhere, nobody caring, no one checking for our safety, even though when Umar got off the plane, he said there was another bomb on board. Nobody cared. Nobody checked anywhere.
You were just props to roll out the naked body scanners so that the outgoing head of Homeland Security, Lord Chertoff, can make some money. The guy that ordered the naked body scanners, who then went to work for the company to get the payoff.
We're pawns in a big chess game. Nobody cared about us at all. But, you know, looking back, it's pretty obvious that they knew there weren't any concerns because it was a defective bomb. They knew it was a defective bomb. They knew there weren't any accomplices other than the ones in the U.S. government. They knew there weren't any other bombs on board, even though Umar said there was as he got off. And they knew we weren't in any danger with pieces of the bomb sitting everywhere as passengers trampled through it when we got off the plane. So, you know, looking back at it, I think it's very clear what went on, at least to me. And, you know, I said that in my victim impact statement. And Judge Edmonds was not happy with me. I was done with it, and she scowled at me, and then she said, my wife Lori had the next statement after I did, and she said, Ms. Haskell, I'm sure you're not going to say anything about a government conspiracy like your husband just did before you get up here. Kind of intimidating her, which I think was
Have
wrong.
you ever heard of a judge admonishing a victim before they have their statement?
Never. Not only that, but she
I've never heard of that.
Never. It's totally unheard of. Not only that, she never said anything like that to Umar in over 2 years of the trial. You know, and I went to almost all the hearings. She never talked like that to him at all. But that's how mad she was at me for spilling the beans.
Yeah, you're saying it's all theater, it's all a matrix, it's all a hoax, and they don't like that. You know, it's kind of like it was even on the Discovery Channel years after. When I was first in about 97, I've been on the air a few years, told by police officers who I've interviewed on air with their names, who the FBI came to their houses and said, we'll kill you and your family if you talk about what witnesses told you, which was FBI agents planting bombs with ATF agents inside the Oklahoma City building. And I mean, I've had the cops on. They'd even threaten them in the police station. They'd come in and say, we'll kill you and your wife. And I've had those cops on, like Mr. Browning, the K-9 sergeant. And he's like, oh, you're going to kill me and my wife? They're like, yeah, we're going to kill you. And, I mean, that's just how this works, because they just killed a bunch of kids in a daycare center. Why not? Why not go all the way here? I mean, you know, kill 3,000 on 9/11. But I was told this by police officers and others in like 97, and I still couldn't believe it. And then it was even in the LA Times that the government confiscated 20-plus videotapes showing the other bombers of Oklahoma City and were suppressing it. And that the ATF, same thing the police had told me, had practiced 6 months before Oklahoma City in New Mexico at a testing range, blowing up a Ryder truck, with Ryder on the side, with fuel oil in it. I mean, how much more obvious does this have to get, Kurt? I mean, they're doing this to be able to take our rights and get giant budgets and ship guns into Mexico to then blame the Second Amendment with Fast and Furious. They got caught there, killed over 2,000 people, the Mexican government says, killed 3 cops, 2 Border Patrol here at least. They're caught. Nobody gets in trouble, Kurt. That's a false flag where they got caught, Kurt.
You're right. And this one is too. You know, but you're totally right. What do we do about it? But the other problem is the media. The mainstream media is a massive, massive problem in this because they just won't report it. You know, I saw it the other day when I was in court. They should have blasted.
Tell you what, stay there. We got to go to break, don't we? Because I think I hear music, don't I? Yeah, we're going to be back in 30 seconds. Kurt, I want to give you a final statement on the other side, then we'll get our next guest on, but I want you to finish. I have to tell you that. I risk my viewers and listeners. Hope you realize the magnitude of these terrorists we're fighting. We got our next guest coming up here in a moment, and then we're going to get Jim Marrs in studio, or on location, I should be more accurate, here in Dallas, Texas, where I'm about to speak to a capacity crowd. You know, it's always sad to turn away people. There's like a line of people out there with the tickets sold out. And I think they're going to let some of them in standing room only, but I should have got a bigger venue. But I just love this theater. I grew up in Dallas, just down the street from here, and came and saw like movies like Dumbo and stuff when they'd re-air old Disney movies. You know, I wish the world was all happy like Dumbo, flapping around with his ears. I wish the Federal Reserve wasn't private. I wish pigs did fly, but the New World Order is in charge, and we've got to change that. Finishing up with Kurt Haskell. Kurt, I want to get you on during the week, if you can, for a full hour. I know you couldn't come on Friday. You were busy with clients and people as a lawyer. But give out your website and in 2 minutes, closing statement on what people need to know about the underwear bombing, the Christmas Day bombing.
Sure. Well, you can read my blog. I've been blogging about this incident since it happened. HaskellFamily.blogspot.com. You'll have to go all the way back to Christmas Day 09, read forward between all of our other posts. It's just a family blog. It's not about the underwear bomber specifically, so keep that in mind. But the other aspect that we haven't really touched on a lot with the underwear bomber is the complicity of the media. This is a huge problem that the media just won't report the story. You know, if they did, there would be people outraged over this, millions of people, and this sort of thing would probably stop. But
yeah, the watchdog isn't there so the crooks in government can get away with bloody murder.
Right. And a good example was on Thursday when I made my victim impact statement. There were only 5 of us that made victim impact statements, and 3 of them spoke with very thick accents. I could hardly understand them. The 4th one was my wife, Lori, whose statement didn't have a lot of facts in it because she was intimidated by the judge's statement right before she got up there. And mine, where I just ripped the government, ripped the media for not reporting on the story. But if you look at the media articles about me, hardly anything's mentioned, or they'll say that.
What about a judicial complaint against the judge for the victim, your wife, just a few rows away from his firecracker bomb, and then she's intimidated from not giving her statement by this judicial tyrant?
I think she's actually going to file one. She wrote one up last week. I don't know if she's
good
or not, but I think she's actually going to file one. She's pretty irritated over it. But yeah, the media is a huge problem. You know, hardly anyone reported on it. I talked to them afterward. I hardly appear anywhere. You know, one of them had the nerve to ask me, why did you feel the need to make that statement in open court today? And I said, are you kidding me? Because you never report any of this. Anyway, that's just my.
You're not supposed to talk about what's really going on. You're supposed to. Oh, it's in all the federal courts. The government ships the narcotics in and ships guns into Mexico, but we're going to only talk about the gun part, not the drug part. I mean, sure, it's in federal court, but you don't discuss the fact that the government's really a mafia. Why, they might come after us. We've all got to bend over to whatever they say because that's what America's about. Kurt, thank you so much. We'll talk to you next week if you can do it.
Anytime, Alex. Glad to be on.
Glad to have you. Okay, there goes Kurt Haskell, and we're going to dial up via Skype because the audio is better for our radio listeners and for video viewers at PrisonPlanet.tv. David Sardi and Doomsday Preppers. Government hoards food, government hoards water, government hoards giant stockpiles of nuclear weapons and biological weapons, and that's reasonable and good to have a 20-year food supply and underground reactors, underground reservoirs, and giant armored mountains like Mount Weather and Cheyenne Mountain and Colorado Springs and all the rest of it. But if you have a fallout shelter or a storm shelter for hurricanes or tornadoes, if you even dare attempt in any way to have firearms and a year's supply of food and can some stuff like our forefathers just 50 years ago were doing. Forget forefathers, just 50 years ago that was standard. It is bizarre behavior. You can go to Communities Against Terrorism subsection of FBI.gov. There's literally hundreds of flyers they put out, and they tell repair people when they're in your house, do they have ammo reloading equipment? Do they have storable food? Did you see an arsenal of guns? As if underground railways and all these systems that are admitted. But if we try to be prepared, we are evil.